In my first video, I discussed the legendary Daigo parry. I like to provide examples to help illustrate concepts that I feel overlap in crafting and playing games that feature good combat. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I feel comprehensive defense is the key to facilitating great moments that are fulfilling to experience and watch. But what if I told you there was another legendary evil moment that just happened pretty recently? In July of 2024, players Hayao and Frankie BFG faced off. It's the last match of the losers bracket of the quarterfinals. Frankie is playing as Ken, the obvious higher tier pick, while Hayao is playing as Hugo, an objectively lower tier character. Despite Hayao being in the lead for the set, Frankie began to pressure Hayao and gain some ground in the match. Eventually, Hayao takes enough damage to get down to 1 measly HP. And just like Daigo, any damage ends the match, even if he blocks because of the chip damage. The difference is, Daigo, knowing it would be over if he's too aggressive, waits for Justin Wong to attack. But watch Hayao. Do you have any idea how much guts it takes to jump in this moment? With the match on the line, in front of millions of people, any mistake, any miscalculation, and it's over. Against all the odds, Hayao fearlessly jumps with him, and instead of taking damage, he unbelievably air parries every attack and comes back with the zone riposte. But that's not where the story ends. Frankie BFG, seeing the opportunity, like young Justin Wong, seeks to end the match with a super combo. He bursts forward with his attacks, and Hayao does something no one could have expected. You see, jumping here might have put him too high in the air, giving Ken enough time to react. Instead, he presses heavy kick, a slow on startup and heavily punishable on block, worthless attack. He floats over Ken and lands in time to counter and incredibly win the match. A YouTuber named Korean BF has an excellent video going over this awesome moment, and I recommend watching it. I'll have it linked in the description. But how on earth does this relate to Nioh 2? Well, keep this in mind because we'll come back to it. You see, I came so close. I came so close to giving Nioh 2 a bad review. Let me tell you a story. Many people have suggested I play Nioh 2, and after how great my experience with Stranger of Paradise was, I was excited to play it. After playing Wo Long and publishing my perspective on the game, I booted up Nioh 2. Creating a character felt good, and being able to customize the yokai form is a nice touch. And I like being able to choose your weapon right away. It gives you a good opportunity to decide what you like and what feels good to play. I loved the Kusarigama. Weapons like that are rarely found in video games, and using a weapon like that has always been a dream of mine since seeing the horseshoe and rope scene in Shanghai Noon. That got even more emphasized when Trevor Belmont was fighting at the end of the Netflix Castlevania anime. It did not disappoint. And it didn't take long for me to grasp the key pulse concept. Once I learned how to change stances, the first question I naturally asked was, well, can I key pulse and change stances at the same time? Of course you can. There's even a samurai skill that enhances it, a skill called Flux. So far, so good. I died a few times to the initial Gozuki that you have to sneak past, but with some understanding of how the weapon worked and which stances are heavy on ki, I beat him. I will say I was a little nervous at this point though because the dodge felt unpredictable. I couldn't figure out the timing and there doesn't seem to be a perfect block option. After looking through the skill tree a bit, I figured maybe I just need to unlock it. It takes a bit to grasp the rhythm of Nioh, and I'm not used to managing ki. It seems like because you need to master the ki pulse, the cost of ki is a little high. It was tough to keep in the back of my mind that I needed to remember to ki pulse at the end of each attack string, but as I was able to get the habit down, beating enemies became easier and easier. And the first mission goes just fine actually. I don't feel like I'm truly grasping the dodge timing, but I can burst counter, and maybe that's where this game's defense shines. I'm unsure yet, but I figure I would just trust the community. I cleared the first side mission pretty easily, and getting to the second campaign mission went smoothly for the most part. I found the Ippon Datara annoying, and it was the first time I started to feel like maybe Nioh 2 wasn't for me. I beat him and the subsequent Ippon yokai. Overall, the second campaign mission goes pretty smoothly, except at the end of this mission, the game took a nosedive that really upset me. This boss. It felt completely different. He's hitting really hard, and I can't seem to dodge any of his attacks. Blocking isn't working, and he's just deleting my key bar. I barely have enough ki to even mount my own counterattack. What am I supposed to be doing to defend against him? By now, I had unlocked some defense skills, but nothing's working. I started to wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Eventually, I broke one of my gaming rules. You see, I don't like going to the internet to find answers. I like to discover the game myself. So, I won't look up anything until I've beaten the game myself. But I tried everything I could to overcome his offense. So, out of frustration and desperation, I looked up guides to see how to beat him, and what I found was utterly unacceptable.
Around him immediately, so you don't want to get too close, and then you're going to wait to see what sort of attacks he does. He'll usually teleport at you, and you need to dodge away when this happens, and he'll usually do a couple of attacks and a kick or two. He's either going to do a swipe combo or a swipe kick combo.
You can avoid most of his teleport attacks by staying locked on and pulling your movement stick back while holding run. You can see his area of effect attack there, and now he'll teleport. Well, he teleported right on me, so I had to dodge backwards. That can happen. Try to put a burning pillar between you and him so that he breaks it. Well, he actually just went straight through.
The easiest way to avoid them is to just run in circles around him. You usually want to wait for his second kick before attacking, since there's almost always two of them.
People were suggesting these hit-and-run tactics. Running away to avoid attacks? What? Is this how you're supposed to play Nioh? I didn't find any videos explaining how to use the defense system to win. I returned to the game determined to get through it, and I don't like relying on the yokai form to win, but after getting him close a few times and dying, I gave in. After that, I completed the second side mission. Then moved on to the third campaign mission. Again, it's going smoothly overall. It has its share of challenges, and I'm getting more comfortable with the controls. I start to feel like maybe I'm getting in tune with this sense of flow. Staying aggressive, managing ki. I felt like maybe Enenra was just a fluke. Boy oh boy was I wrong. All hope was shattered when I encountered the third boss. This giant snake. Yatsu-no-Kami. Honestly, this boss made Enenra feel easy. Everything up to this point came to a head. The unreliable dodging, the lack of a parry like Stranger Paradise, the blocking even feels like it's not reliable. So again, I felt I have to be doing something wrong. I looked up boss guides, and what I saw truly horrified me. Everyone, literally everyone, was saying the same thing.
You're really going to want to move left or right to get next to him. He's sort of going to charge at you very slowly. It's not hard to dodge at all. And then just immediately start attacking into his side. Unlike the first two bosses of the game, you're going to burst counter a lot less often. And the strategy is to back away from him and wait for certain attacks to happen and then get in and attack him. you're not going.
One, and it's 2 side kicks either side of it. What we will do is target these 2 first, so they don't interfere with the next phase in the Dark Realm. You'll want to wait for the move where the main snake buries the other 2 in the ground. When this happens, run to the side of one of the smaller snakes and use a high stance heavy attack to damage it as much as...
First phase, you should stay about mid-range from him and wait for his attack where he digs his snake arms into the ground. When he does this, run towards him and focus on attacking his snake arms. Destroying his arms is important because when he goes into his next phase, you won't have to worry about his arms attacking you as separate enemies.
Is this how Nioh 2 is meant to be played? Fighting grunts and minions is fun because you have defense skills, but when fighting yokai, do you have to resort to these hit and run, stick and move, wait and bait, trick and dick tactics? Everyone keeps suggesting it. This cannot be the case. I tried a few more times and I just turned the game off. And I was left with the feeling that I couldn't possibly positively review Nioh 2. And that's a concerning feeling because I felt it's probably going to upset a lot of people, drive viewers and subscribers away. But I can't lie though, I have to tell the truth, even if it costs me. Nioh 2 is not good. Before I committed to that though, I decided to just pivot to another game. So I started Final Fantasy 16. I was enjoying the playthrough and started experimenting with the combat. One night before going to bed though, instead of clicking on 16, for some reason I clicked on Nioh 2. I couldn't get something out of my head. Maybe I need to time my dodges with the key pulse? Kind of like the sword phase in Stranger of Paradise? There's a similar trail behind the character, so I don't know. Either way, I have to be missing something. I decided to do something completely different. Just make a classic Oni-slaying samurai. I love the old Kurosawa movies, and Yojimbo is just one of my favorite movies, period. So I decided to create a character that looks like Toshiro Mifune. How do you think I did? I started with the katana and the dual katana this time, just going full yokai slayer. The katana took some getting used to though. It was much more expensive on key, and learning to manage it was difficult. I couldn't beat the Gozuki at level 1 like I could with the Kusarigama. I just moved on from him, hoping that by the time I reach those 2 bosses, I'll have learned the secret. It was when I got to the first end key that it happened. 2 simple button inputs changed the entire game. What the hell was that? I did a spin. How did I do that? I went through some trial and error. Is it my stance? Did I unlock a skill? When finally, I figured it out. Pressing a direction and the dodge button causes you to spin when in low stance with the katana. It's much more reliable than the normal dodge. I used the levels leading up to Enenra to practice the spin dodge. I finally got to him, and this was the moment of truth. This may have just saved Nioh 2 for me. It did not disappoint. This feels much better. I did not have to resort to these running away tactics people were suggesting on YouTube. I despise this style of play. I'm not running around. I refuse to use these hidden run, stick and move, wait and bait, trick and dick tactics. I want to be like Hayao. I want to have the guts to still jump in when it's all on the line. I want to trust my defense and be confident in my offense conversion. Do you think it's a coincidence that two of the greatest comeback moments in EVO are the same game? This moment couldn't happen if you couldn't parry in the air. In fact, neither of them could. Defense matters so much, and I think games suffer when it's not present. I think Smash Bros. Ultimately really benefited from adding a precision parry. I can't stand running away as a defense option. I should clarify. If I need to avoid like an explosion or something and I can rely on spacing, that's fine. Spacing is defense. I just mean running away and avoiding attacks that I should be able to deal with using the game's defense system. So the katana may have just resurrected my Nioh 2 review. But before I celebrated too early, I needed to test this on one final challenge. This is what I'm talking about. You see, during this fight, I discovered a second defense strategy, yokai dodging. I started with the brute with my initial playthrough, but this time I started with the feral yokai. I'm sure veterans or people playing a long time would laugh at this since they already do it a lot, but I didn't realize how the burst counter could be used. I did it on accident the first time, but it has become a staple in my Nioh 2 defense now. I discovered a YouTuber named Shape, and from the combat he showcases, I know that Nioh 2 is capable of far more than what I'm experiencing. But there are some major issues I have with this game. The katana has 4 parries. None of them work on yokai. So you mean to tell me this entire tree is designed to fight grunt level enemies? But that's not even the worst part. Nodes are locked behind completing missions. So even if the combat does get better, I'm forced to go through the game with this gimped play until I beat the mission that is locked behind?
I'm sorry! No! 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 Why? Ah!
In both Stranger of Paradise and Wolong, I have access to everything I need to deal with any challenge as soon as the game starts. There isn't a single attack I cannot parry or perfect dodge in Stranger of Paradise. Sometimes I parry so much that I have to remind myself to soul shield to build up my MP. My build in Stranger of Paradise is centered around parrying, because I get buffs, I heal, and restore MP. I don't even have to use potions. So, I gotta be honest, the early gameplay experience for a new Nioh player is just awful. Enenra is not even a tough boss mechanics wise. He's difficult because the lack of defense and them purposely manipulating the key bar is what drives the difficulty. So players have crafted guides where you just don't deal with them. I can't play like that. I can't accept that. If you don't mind using these kind of tactics, fine, but that feels like winning, not beating the boss. I don't just want to win, I want to beat him.
Man, I won, but I didn't beat him!
Now, this video is not meant to be a Nioh review, so much as I just want to talk about some of the things that I find baffling about this game so far. I am reserving judgment until I have full access to all the skills and talents to give this game a grade. But I truly feel like this game's initial design is a big mistake. I can admit that the stance changing and the sophistication of the offense that Nioh presents is imaginative with a high skill ceiling and is likely matchless as an offense system. But the defense is sorely lacking, and when the defense is present, it's limited to humanoids in most cases. I'm torn on that because if I'm giving a very generous interpretation on why that is, it's because humans are using weapons that you could parry and use techniques on. Yokai are just these big brutes that sometimes don't even have arms or legs, so parrying and all that seems like it might be a bit impractical. To be honest, I do like the concept, but I would prefer to just let me tap L1 to negate damage. You know what? Actually, if every weapon just had this spin dodge and low stance, I would be far less frustrated with this game. You see, I don't hold the guard button. Holding a button to me is anti-video game playing. Either I do precision defense or I get hit. There is no in between for me. Now, Nioh's offense is built around swapping between 3 stances, but technically there's 4. Many of Nioh's attacks are activated from the guard stance. You see, I didn't use them at first because I don't hold guard. But once I began to see guard as a stance over being a means to block and attack, it opened up the next level of playing, and this is where I currently am. I'm almost done with the second region and things are going much better, but I can't lie and say that Nioh 2 currently ranks very high for me. In fact, it's pretty low overall. I really don't see what you all currently see with this game, so hopefully the endgame will change my mind. If I was forced to give it a grade right now, I would say that I agree with you all that Nioh 2's offense is S+. It's creative and it's imaginative and there's a high skill ceiling. But the defense is barely B rank, and that's very frustrating for a player like me. So I'm not going to come out and say Nioh 2 is a bad game. I don't currently enjoy it, but I have my own personal feelings and I'm judging off of that, and people who don't feel the way I do will see the game differently. So I will say that my moment-to-moment gameplay isn't bad. It's really only when fighting bosses that I'm frustrated, and switching to the katana has helped a lot. I made this video so that when I do make the Nioh combat breakdown, I don't have to go over these frustrations again. I just want to be able to talk about how the game improved or how it may not have improved. I don't know yet. I do know that from seeing that the combat showcases shaped us, that there's a future that looks like it's promising, and so I'm reserving judgment until I get to that place. So I'm looking forward to the end game, and hopefully this game meets the praise that you all have given it.